Thank you very much, David, for the opportunity to talk to us a little about what we've been able to do with T4 since we moved to this platform a little over 12 months ago. So just to give you a bit of context, we moved in the main website into production in August of last year. Today we have something like 190,000 content items. Most of those are in English. There's a little bit of stuff in French and a smattering of other languages, and of course lots of stuff in the media library. Over 260,000 pages on the site today. That's actually a lot less than what we used to have on the previous site. We've got nearly up to about 1 million pages. We did quite a lot of culling of content when we moved to the new platform. And of course we have this problem with web editors. We started with a smaller number, the numbers are creeping up. We have over 300 people who've been trained in use of T4 and use of the back office since we moved to the new system last year. Around 1,500 documents created every month, 2,000 modified every month. In terms of usage, something like 1.3 million visits per month, and 840,000 individuals coming to, unique people coming to visit the month. You visit the site every month. And of course, www.oec.org is the main website. We have something like 200 satellite sites. These are sites built around conferences, big research areas that use a particular template. Okay. In terms of the T4 platform, this will look familiar to a lot of you. I mean, we have all of our infrastructure is virtualized except for our publication server. We have 2 back office servers. The pub server, which is actually the biggest piece of hardware that we could actually get our hands on at the time. All that sitting, of course, behind firewall. 2 web servers. Our 300 or so web editors are working through a load balancer on our back office server, publishing to our pub server, which gets transferred today using an ad hoc mechanism to our web servers. We also have a backup and training environment, for which we also do training. Okay, so what are we doing with this platform? Well, clearly the OECD is known as let's say it's a world reference in the area of statistics. So in terms of statistics, I found this on the front page of the Irish Times yesterday.
So that was just the party last night.
That was the party last night. And I thought, well, this is all very well good, but I mean, I live in France, and I'm a little bit surprised that Irish being near the top of the table for drinking. And so, of course, when you look at a little bit more detail, the information is there. Ireland is close to the top, but France is very close to the top, and now we know what people are doing in Luxembourg. Okay? So the thing is here that the statistics, the qualitative information is the core of what we do at the OECD. It enables us to have meaningful discussions around policy. But in fact, that's what the OECD is really about, it's policy. So what we're talking about is trying to build systems. Obviously, the website is a place where people go for OECD statistics. But it's also a place where we want to make information available about our policy work. And that policy work is, I'll talk about a little bit about a policy life cycle. The statistics enable people to compare information, right, in a meaningful way, and assess the stuff. But we're also interested in people who are designing policies, implementing those policies, and monitoring the policies. So what we've been able to do since we moved to T4 is to begin designing a whole family of websites or online platforms that are addressing this policy life cycle. And this is what I want to talk to you a little bit about today. I'm going to do a deep dive into one of those applications. So the first of these is the Better Life Index. This is one that Pierre mentioned in his initial talk. This was actually an application that was developed outside of T4 because it was developed before we had the T4 platform. It was developed using WordPress, Flash. It had an enormous impact actually. This is making indicators or statistics available to the next sort of higher limit. People here could create their own indicators and save those indicators and share them with other people. However, there were issues with the WordPress platform, performance problems, maintenance, and there were also some language that we wanted to add. They wanted to add some more languages. So they came to us and we said, yes, we can do this in T4. So in fact, we've moved the whole of this application now to T4. Flash has been moved to, we're actually adopted an HTML5 approach for the whole of the application. We've completely got over those performance and maintenance issues. And we're using a hybrid for the ability to be able to save their the choice of their indicators and share them with other people. We actually build a custom Java app to do that. A little bit more, that's more around to compare and assess. Here we're really getting into the, let's say, the design and implement policies. We're building a system at the moment, this is one that Nicholas is going to dive into a little bit more, that is enabling people to explore the whole education policy area and actually in any particular area they click on to be able to move to the related areas and explore let's say, the metadata and data that's been stored in the system around those policies. Here we're using a kind of innovative, you'll see this innovative JavaScript at the front end, and we're making data available via JSON from T4. Here again, it's a responsive design, HTML5. The observatory for public sector innovation. Here we're moving more into the engagement. What we're trying to do here is engage with policymakers who are designing and implementing policy in innovation, public sector innovation area. There's a public website, and we're also building a, let's say, protected area where innovators, people in local, federal governments, are able to discuss with other policymakers about looking for best practices, share ideas for better innovations. Here again, this is a HTML5 responsive design, and we're using Exelite here as the search engine, both on the library and on there's an innovation database as well. And finally, OECD guidelines for multinational enterprises. This is in fact a very mature process. It was put in place in the 1970s. In fact, it's what we call soft law. Basically, countries, there are 34 member countries in the OECD, but there are about over 40 countries that have signed up to this system. Basically, it's countries, they sign up, and the idea is that their multinational enterprises are going to try to act ethically wherever they are working. And of course, sometimes they don't. So there needs to be a mechanism for people to be able to blow a whistle, and that's what NGOs have been doing for years. And what we've done is we've put in place a database, an online database. This used to be published in a report every year, an online database to make this information accessible, transparent, and the process of how those exceptions, let's say, to the rules are being followed. And here again, we're using Exelite, a faceted search on this application. So it's now 10 to 1, so I'm going to hand the floor to Nicholas so we can do a deep dive into the GPS.
Hello everybody. So I'm going to talk to you about this website that we're currently developing using the Site Manager. I think it's, we believe that it's quite an interesting example, because it's been a bit challenging on several parts. So this website, as Doug mentioned, is about navigation, and is about providing I would say, navigation means to the visitors to actually navigate through policies related to the education area. And so there's, as you can see, there's a graphical navigation that is a network of topics related to policy, to education policies. Users can actually click on those various nodes. I'll try, maybe if I have the time at the end, I'll try to launch the pre-live website that we have so that you can see that it's very interactive. You can drag and drop those little circles, and it's pretty fancy. But the whole idea is that all the content that is on the site, on the bottom of the page, is actually adapting dynamically depending on where the users click. I mean, the nodes are also like zooming, showing the sub nodes that are around. And basically, that's the basic functionality of the website. The challenge is actually is the network modeling. So what was requested from us was to take this network, which is an oriented network, and to model it into T4 and provide our users with a back office that would allow them to actually manage the network. It was actually, if you take a look back, you have those clusters that are the colored potatoes, I would say. These clusters are like little trees of information that are related to a root topic and its subtopic. And then you have like, I would say, usual hierarchical relations, child-to-parent relations within the cluster. Then you may have relations that are child-to-parent relations outside of the cluster. And then you may also have horizontal relations, which are, I don't know if it's very visible, but some of the lines are actually dotted. Okay. So actually, when we were provided with when the project started, we were provided with a prototype, which was relying on Google Tables to store I would say, fake data or sample data, and it was pumping the data from these Google Tables. And so we had a look at that, and we realized that there were actually there was a table for the nodes themselves. There was a table for the edges, defining how all the edges of the network, and there was a table for the I would say the contents that appear on the bottom of the page, and which are related to those to these topics. So how did we represent that in Site Manager? Quite recently, honestly, it took us a bit of time to figure out exactly how we would do that. But I think we came up with a pretty nice and handy model. So quite naturally, I would say that the topic node, meaning the little circles, became sections in Site Manager. The topic clusters became subtrees in Site Manager. And the links became content, and we had to define a content type for each of our 3 types of links. Okay. A bit more in detail, all of the links in the network are characterized by I would say a source node or a section. This one is implicit. So wherever the content, the link content is, the section where it is the root, is the source section. There's a target node, which can be implicit or explicit, meaning that, for example, within a cluster, the child-to-parent relation is implicit. So there's actually, you don't need to actually specify the source and the target nodes, but we still have a content to hold the metadata of the link. The metadata of the link can be like a title or a weight and things like that. So normally when users hover over the network, they can have titles appearing on the links, and the links are displayed differently depending on their type, of course, but also on the weight that is associated to the link. So then we also the third type of links, which is the horizontal link outside of a link to any node outside of a cluster. This one has like a target node that is explicit and that is marking where the link points to. So by having those 3 content types, we were for each one, each content type for each type of link, we were able to actually model all the relations between the nodes and hold all the metadata that was needed on these links between the nodes. Okay. So this is what is a bit. This is how I detail this here. So the cluster links, meaning the links from a child to parent within the cluster, they only hold metadata. The other parents link, so I told you there's another child to parent relationship. They hold metadata and a link to another node outside of the cluster, and the horizontal links, which are not child to parent relations, they hold metadata and a link to a section somewhere else in the network. There was also we also needed one a content type as well for the node metadata itself. The node metadata being the title, description of position, and XY position on the network for initialization, bootstrapping of the network when it shows up. And there are also other content types for the actual information that appears at the bottom of the page and that is related to those nodes into the network. So then, this Insight Manager is roughly what you see here. I mean, this is a view of the network. Each of the root section that is not, I mean, that is like a lifelong learning organization, etc., are the root of the clusters. And under each of these sections, you have subsections which are actually the clustered marking, like the clustered links, and the subtopics around the root topic within a cluster. Inside each of these sections, you're going to find contents. Each of these contents are holding the metadata of the links, allowing to represent the whole network. Then, as I told you when we started the project, the design was made that, well, as I didn't tell you that, but anyways, the design was made by an external company, an external company, and we were in a deep collaboration with them in order to figure out exactly what the necessary artifacts will be for the network to display all this information. We had the example with the Google tables, but we moved to a JSON-based approach. So there are actually three types of JSON files. I'm sorry about that. This one is not. Anyways, one JSON file holds. It's a bit like the Google tables I was talking to you about at the beginning. So one JSON file holds the nodes and their metadata. I know it's very visible, but basically it's what I told you before. So we have a JSON file holding for the evaluation quality assurance. So we have the title, we have positions, we have education levels, which is metadata, etc. Okay. Then we have a second file which holds the edges. The edges are actually the links themselves. So they contain a source, a target, and metadata like the weight, the type of the link, and the description or title that will appear on the link. And then we have what we call the topic JSON file, which is actually the contents. So each of the paragraphs that are showing up at the bottom of the page are there is one for each of the nodes. There is one file which contains all these paragraphs that are going to be displayed on the page. Sorry about that. So now the question is, how do we produce these artifacts? Actually, modeling on one side was a bit tricky because we wanted to give the users an environment where they could actually manage their network, meaning like they could move nodes around, reparent them, change the links, and do that easily using Site Manager, which I think we succeeded in doing. But then there was the artifacts and the challenge to be able to produce these artifacts. I haven't said that at the beginning, but this website is a one-page website. Okay, everything that is around is it's a usual Site Manager stuff. I mean, you know, there's a page layout, there's styles and things like that. Okay, and then everything is loaded. All the information is loaded dynamically depending on the clicks of the user. But still, this information is entirely managed into Site Manager. Okay, so we're not using the standard, I would say, website navigation going from page to page, but we're still a static site where there's one page and an interactive navigation that loads data that is produced by Site Manager. Okay, so the tricky part of that is that all these JSON files, they mix section information and content information in the same file. The nodes or the edges. Some of the links some of the things are implicit, as I told you, and some are explicit. The topic JSON files are like mixing several contents of several types, and so it was really challenging to actually do that using the out-of-the-box toolset and the level of I would say expression that you get in the formatters or the styles using the standard navigators. So we had a look at how navigators are built and how we could extend them to make what we want and what we need. We had already started that in another project, for example, in the BLI project, the Better Life Index project that Doug talked to you about. We had a very simple use case, for example, which we were surprised we couldn't do. You have T4 lists in the back office, and there's absolutely no navigator allowing you to just display the values of a list, right? I mean, at least in 7.3. I'm not saying that we haven't gone to 7.4 yet, but so we had already started to work on writing our own navigators, and this is what we do. This is what we did for the GPS, and actually, so we don't see the bottom of this slide. Doesn't matter. What we need to do is that we need these files to be dynamically generated based on the network and on the contents and on the topic contents. And we needed these files to be these files to have real URLs as JSON files, so that the UI could load them dynamically. Either at Bootstrap, it loads the nodes and the edges to draw the main picture of the network, and then on demand, when you click on a node, we needed the thing to be able to load a JSON file with the paragraphs and the information that would be displayed in the bottom on the bottom of the screen. So what we did is that we implemented an OECD section navigator. Actually, what it does is that it takes a section ID, as parameters. It takes a depth. The depth, it's going to traverse a tree and go as deep as we tell it to go, or as deep as it can. And it's going to either take a list of content type IDs or any content type that it finds, and it uses a mustache template to actually output the information. So what our code is actually doing is that it's abstracting, I would say, based on the criteria on the section ID, depth and content type ID. I would say it loads a data object model representing the sections and the content. Everything is presented like in a map-like structure, but recursive map-like structure with content and sections, and is passed to a mustache template engine that is taking this subject model and rendering it in any format that we need, and in that case, in JSON. So actually, the only thing that we needed to do once we had that was to specify, to write down our mustache template, to put the navigators into code content. I would say somewhere under a section which would have a page layout outputting JSON. Okay, so this is how we achieved our goal, which was to, on one side, be able to produce these files. In JSON, under specific URLs that would be accessible to this one-page website, I would say. So this is an example of the type of templates that we have for the nodes JSON. For the nodes JSON file, we have a mustache template that is actually looping over the content and building the JSON based on properties of either content or sections, depending on what is needed. And it's pretty straightforward to write. We have added the possibility to have recursive mustache templates, so that we can name templates and reuse them to have a fully recursive thing that is going to output according to the template. Same goes for the edges. I don't know if you can mind. This is the format of the JSON file, and again, iterators on the content and specific properties that are retrieved by name and output into the JSON. Well, the rest, all is the usual site manager stuff. It's as I told you before, it's a page layout with the styles, images, media libraries, and things like that. And as a conclusion, I would say that we were pretty happy actually, because we were able to model that complex, I would say, data structure into Site Manager and provide the tools for end users which allow them to actually manage it easily. It was actually pretty easy to write custom navigators in order to produce the exact needed JSON files. And so we were able, in a very little time, I would say, to deliver a highly interactive and dynamic website to our clients with little effort and time. And that on a model that is not the standard site manager and maybe even OECD website model of development. That's it. I'm done. I can show you that, yeah.
See ya.
I'll try to.
I just want to see the potatoes.
Yeah. You want to see how nice they are.
Oh no, Piero's doing jokes. Sorry.
So that's the network, okay? So as I told you, the network is like a fancy little tool, right? It's moving all around. People like these kind of things, as you may guess. And now this is maybe a bit difficult to see. But under the network, there are these contents I was talking to you about. Whenever you click on a node, so it pops up. It shows all the closest relations within the cluster or outside of the cluster. And here under you actually have the information. So this is a bad example. This is fake information actually. But you have I'm gonna find another one which is better. I think that if I click on equity,
No, that's fine.
so you have paragraphs that are showing up, and which are dynamically loaded from this topic JSON file I talked to you about. And there's also other information that are retrieved from various of our systems, like this is coming from our publication index. These are publications that are coming from another system. And all these contents are actually dynamically loaded when you click on the nodes, all the things that you see here on the left. And there's also filters. I don't know if you saw, but there are like there's a metadata around every single piece of content. And if you click on primary education, for example, your network gets reduced to only nodes that concern primary education. And normally, all of the content in here is filtered out. Is also filtered out according to those little filters. That's it. Thank you.